What's going on, guys? Welcome to The Journey, where we deep dive all things real estate and investing. We pick the brains of market leaders in their field so that we can fast forward you from where you are to where you want to be, utilizing their knowledge and experience. My name is Austin Mitchell, and on today's episode, I have joining me Julian Rivera.
Bam.
Julian is a long-term investor, long-term DJ, and real estate agent. So he has been in this game, the real estate agent game. He's been Rookie of the Year, Circle of Excellence winner in 2022. He was also, 2022 COVA Next Gen winner.
Cool.
Yep. He's a long-term DJ, been doing that for 20 years. Performed at Something in the Water here in Hampton Roads area with audiences as big as 20,000. He currently still DJs all over the place, even at ODU where he graduated for the basketball team. And he's an active investor. He's got 7 doors right now and actively closing more all the time. He's got it mixed between short-term and long-term rentals. So today we're definitely going to dive in, pick his brain on the short-term rental game and kind of what he's looking for in that field. But to get started, Julian, you are the first DJ. So I want to hear a little bit about that background. How did you get into that, and what are you currently doing in the DJ space?
Got you. So first and foremost, good job on your interviews, man, because I saw a few before I got here, and you're interviewing a lot of my boys, which is really cool, but good job on doing that, man. There's no one else in the market that's really currently doing that.
Thank you.
But to get to your question, so I've been DJing since high school, really. I started at the tail end of high school. This is probably before your time, but back in the day, there was a store called Up Against the Wall in Lynn Haven Mall, and there used to be DJs in the window, right? So on top of just me liking music and everything like that, I used to always see that guy DJing in the window. I was like, that is the coolest thing ever to a teenager. I'm going to do that one day. And needless to say, I did that many of times, but that was just a very small goal considering where I had no idea where I was going to go in that DJ journey. So DJing was just something that I always liked. But back in the day, it was 2 turntables and a mic. We didn't have laptops, so we had to buy doubles of all the vinyls. There's DJs here currently that are still idols to me that really just wanted me to get to that next level. I played guitar. I played very, very, very minimal piano growing up, but they treated, it's called turntablism. It's not just DJing. They treated DJing as an art, like an instrument. It really is, if you take it like that. It's most comparable to drumming. So that was extremely attractive to me. I just liked it. So there's other people out there that just took turntablism to a whole nother level that I respect and I still watch to this day, but it enticed me to get into the game. So I started DJing. It's when you had to bring milk crates of vinyls. I still have all of them to this day, by the way. And my 2 Technique 1200s and my Newmark mixer, and that's exactly where I got started doing that. That's when we had to drop the needles on the record. I mean, there's just so much that you'll never have to worry about. But I started doing that just because I had a passion for music. From about 17 years old all the way till about, let's say, 22 years old, that was around the time where digital was just starting to come into play, right? So a lot of the OGs, even to this day, they didn't want to mess with digital DJing at all. But that allowed everyone to get 10 times more creative, because not only did it speed up the creativity that you can do, it allowed you to get way more creative. And I'm talking about mashing up a Katy Perry song with a Jay-Z song, mashing up a Calvin Harris with a Wayne Wonder dancehall reggae song. I mean, there's so many creative ideas that you can get with that, now having the digital aspects in front of you. So anyways, I started doing that, and then people just started calling me. I don't know why, because I sucked. I was not good at all in my idea. I knew music. I knew a lot of music because obviously DJ started as hip hop, but I loved alternative rock and roll too. I loved the old house techno back in the day too. I loved a little bit of everything, where a lot of people back then were just stuck in their lanes. So digital DJing, quote unquote, allowed me to marry all of them together. I say around the 07, 08, 09 time frame, when that really started to become president. Serato really hit the market, which is the leading software for all DJing, all DJs in the area, in the world. It just allowed us to get a little bit more fluid and fluctuation. And that's around the time where DJs started getting more popular in the private event space, because bands have always dominated that. So I just went full steam ahead in that, and I just was doing bars for whatever. I mean, I remember my first gig. Yeah. Guess how much I got paid for it? Mind you, before you answer that, I had to bring 2 turntables, my mixer, my needles, about 10 crates, speakers, which didn't have the nice ones that we have, like the amps that are in it now. So I had a separate amp, banana cables with a 1/4 inch, and I had to borrow a truck. Guess how much I got paid?
$500.
$75 in a bar tab. And I wasn't even 21 at the time, by the way. Yeah. That's how much I got paid.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to get in the door. I needed to start getting that one skill that just practicing in your bedroom or office would never get you, and that's reading a crowd. That is huge when it comes down to almost any industry. You have to be able to understand your audience. So doing that consistently, I still had a job. I always had my job that I was doing at the time. I was in retail at the store, hence why I was able to DJ in my own store. But I was doing that for a while, and then I just started getting more phone calls.
Yeah.
I just started getting better. I started upgrading my equipment. It's just being consistent. And then I started enjoying it more. I started getting extremely more creative. I started attending other concerts and other festivals that were just starting to emerge in like the late 2000s, early teens. And then it really just started catapulting to me in my late 20s. It just really started picking up. So much that I had to open my own my own entertainment company called Exclusive Entertainment, because I was getting so many calls which is a blessing, I couldn't handle them myself. Yeah. So I needed to start giving them out to people. And I was doing that for a while. And I was like, wait, isn't that what a booking agent does? And I'm just giving them away? Like, hold on, because the phones it's still coming. So then this is also around the time social media started getting really huge. I'm not talking about MySpace. I'm talking about when Facebook really kind of took it over and then started excelling everything else. So then I'm getting a lot of contact in social media, which I still do to this day. And fast forward everything, I was just able to perform at pretty much every club or venue in the area, whether it was a hip hop club, an EDM club, an open format club, which I'm an open format DJ because I can do anything. That's what I say. I don't like to stay in one niche and everything in between. So when that started happening, that's when everything started excelling so fast. And that was right around the time I checked off at the time was one of my biggest bucket lists that I wanted to achieve. And I wanted to be able to say I was a DJ on a local radio station. Yeah. That was like the pinnacle. Unless you left the market and went to New York, LA, or just a top 10 market, we float between market 45 and 48 in the country. So this is radio stats. So back in the day, we know that there was a diary method, and then they switched over to a completely different method, which the name is fleeting my mind right now. But you can only get that if you're in the top 50 market, which we are. And it's not just Virginia Beach, it's Hampton Roads, right? And it's strictly based on population. So knowing that, and that I can say that I made it in a top 50 market, and it's my backyard market, and the station that I was with, there was a handful of people that were just local that can even say that they went on there. Some are out of market, came in, and they kill it to this day. But I did it. I mean, I can say I was able to get there. I didn't have my own morning show. I didn't have my own drive time show, but I was able to fill in on multiple different stations. So I'll say the stations because I work with them to this day as an independent contractor. So it was Z104, 95.7, 2WD, and then 101.3 2WD. There was 3 pinnacle people there that actually got me into there. Jade, who's moved on to be a beast in LA working with, she's a beast. I love Jade. And then there's also Don London, who's still my mentor to this day, who's still a program director for all of them. And then there was my old sales manager, rest in peace, Tim Mayer. Those 3, in my mind, were the biggest players in that to get me to where I got to experience all sides of radio, not just being on radio. So being able to be versatile, because the 4 brands I just mentioned, those are all completely different brands. Yeah. They all have their own demographics. So me being able to jump on a 95.7 R&B, which is a predominantly older station, and at least be able to have a part-time show on it for however long I needed to do, and then jump on a Z104, which is more of our demographic back then, and can be the club scene, and then it's just that made me more of a asset, in lack of better words, because there was no one else being able to do that. And I was just put in that position to do it. It wasn't on purpose, it just ended up working out that way. Yeah. That helped me so much just in general, not just from a DJing perspective, but life, because I got to see all walks of life, even though that was never the goal, it worked out. Yeah. So I didn't really start getting heavy into it till like my late 20s, because I didn't think it was going to be a career choice, right? Like, it's just a hobby, and it turned out I was making money doing my hobby. Yeah. But it started just picking up, dude. And then when I was able to, most of my 20s, I was at Funny Bone for an extremely long time. That access right there really allowed me to meet so many people, not just from a celebrity standpoint, just locally from the people the movers and shakers that made sense in the TV world, in the radio world, and back then the newspaper world. So that's where I say I graduated from Funny Bone to that, and then I never went to another radio station. I was there for years until I decided to leave, and I say I retired corporate America, January 2020. That's when I completely went on my own, because from that time, from the time that I was working there to the time that I left, and I haven't trademarked this, nobody steal this, I called myself the entreployee, because I never relied solely on the income that I was making in one position. I don't care where it was. I just never did, just because of, call it ADHD. I just wanted to do more than one thing, right? So I always considered myself a jack of all trades, but in the higher end. But I never completely went all in on one thing, minus DJing, right? So, because it's just something that stuck with me forever. So doing that for so long allowed me to meet the right people, to utilize and get the stigma of just, oh, he's just a DJ, completely eliminated, at least when they speak with me. So the private event sector, the out-of-town gigs, the collaborations with influencers or celebrities, it all just started blowing up in my 30s, in my very early 30s. That's when I was allowed to go DJ in DC, in Richmond, in New York, in Florida. And I'm just like, whoa, I didn't think it could get there. And everything was rocking and rolling great. Like, it was good. But I still wanted to do more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because the only difference between me and somebody else that opened a business is they believe in themselves.
Exactly.
Strictly it.
Well, it sounds like you obviously have the foundation from the DJing. Like, that has been your pinnacle. And now you leverage that to network, like all the skills that you had and you developed and all the networking that you did, you've been able to take that and now use that as leverage in your real estate. So we were chopping it up before we even started this video, and you were saying like you have this perfect whole cycle of where you'll run a DJing event, but then you'll sell their house and you'll purchase their house, like this whole cycle, and like how you create referrals through all this stuff. So is that how you originally got into it, or you were like still DJing, you're like, I want to get into real estate, or did you have a client that you saw an opportunity there?
So unknowingly, I didn't get my license until 2020, right?
Okay.
But my wife and I owned long-term rentals before that.
Yeah.
So I want to say I've been in real estate longer than I've had my license. Like a lot of people that I know, they've had rentals for a decade, then they finally decided to get their license. Yeah. Two completely different worlds, right? Because you got some properties too that you've had for a minute, and now just getting your license, you're like, okay, now it's go time.
Yeah.
However, the difference is that since I kind of had that knowledge already, kind of just on the basis of buying and purchasing, because I was very involved, not just as a consumer. I wanted to ask those questions. I read all the contracts. It was just, I was curious. An opportunity presented itself while I was at the radio station to get into real estate based on a client that I was working with. He was my client at the time, and now he's my partner, ironically, to this day. Nice. So again, just a little background, I'll tell you how I got there. So when I was at the radio station, I did had my part-time on-air gigs that I was doing across those 4 brands, but I was also one of the marketing directors, and we had a team roughly between 10 to 20 individuals that would help us execute all of the station events that we needed to do, whether it was Stuff the Bus, which is going on today, by the way, shout out to you, Brandon, for doing this, or the concerts, or the remotes all over the place. We had to coordinate that. So there's 3 departments in radio. There was the programming, if you're on air. There's the marketing side that executes all the stuff that the sales side puts together for the brands, right? So I ended up moving from there. Had my late mentor, Tim, convinced me after months and months and months of being on this side to come to the other side, the sales side. Yeah. The best choice I ever made. Literally the best choice. I don't think I'd be where I'm at if I didn't make, actually I know I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't make that choice. And it took me 6 months to make that choice because I'm rocking and rolling. I had the best of both worlds. I had the 9 to 5, well, 9 to 5. I had the day job because it was definitely not 9 to 5. Yeah. But I also had my business on the side. Yeah. But it was all active income. So I actually had to be there. So why can't I start developing as the words being passive income? How can I do that? Because now when I went to the sales side, I wanted to buy a house. That was the main thing I wanted to do, convert from being over to here to here, right? Because writing a lot of stuff off doesn't help you qualify. And I learned that, even though I had my day job there. So I transitioned over there because I wanted to learn. I was hungry. This is my early 30s. And then when I made that, I feel like I got paid for an education. Like their training was through the roof. And I can give more knowledge or more credit to that now, not being there and seeing that, comparing to other things that I've done. However, it gave me a reason to talk to anybody that I wanted to, because essentially I was selling advertisement. So I got to speak to anyone I wanted to, because everyone needs advertisement, right? So fast forward a few years, I was the #1 digital seller and the #1 event seller there, hands down. It was easily. But it's because I knew it coming from this side. That kind of helped. Not in the traditional radio side. I mean, I sold that too, but there's some other goats that were just been doing it a lot longer than me. So I took what I learned, and I had 2 main clients that were there. One of them I'm working now to this day, so they're not a client anymore. So over at Encompass Real Estate Solutions, we're brokered by EXP Realty. However, with that being said, that allowed me to get my foot in the door before I had to pull the trigger, because I started asking questions. I was already having meetings with the guys. So I'm like, let me just learn a little bit more about it. So fast forward, really took me like 2 years to make that choice, because everything was going good. Again, I didn't need to make this move. I'm like, okay, well, let me see what it's going to be like. So ended up, we devised a plan October 2019, and then fast forward to January 31st, 2020. That was my last day there on purpose. Wow. And mind you, I didn't know the world was going to end the next month. Right.
That
definitely wasn't in the forecast. But it actually worked out better than I thought now that I look back at it, because it gave me the time to slow down, to focus on what I've been telling myself I was going to do and do it, right? So it turned out that was like one of the best years ever in real estate. Again, nobody could have predicted that. Nobody could predict 21. But that year, it took me a minute to get my license because everything was shut down. Let me just be completely frank with that. But it gave me the time to do the license online, but I couldn't go take my PSI. I couldn't do anything else because it was just shut down. Yeah. So it took a lot longer than the average person, which I hope nobody ever has to deal with that. But speaking with him and understanding how the journey would be, it really compared to everything I was already doing in the private event and wedding world. So I always say to the people that I work with now, there's 3 important memories in anyone's life. Day you get married, day you buy a house, day you have a kid. I can help you with the first 2 now, but I cannot deliver your kid. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen.
So we'll draw the line.
Right. So I'm not going to school to be a doctor. I don't have time for that. But because I knew that, I already had one of those checked. And I'm like, so technically I can help somebody else, enter their next chapter of their lives after they're with their loved one. And by then, I've already done hundreds of weddings. So I already knew I had a database that I can reach out to. Now I just continue to add to that because that's just one sector. So speaking with him, with Eli, and then I don't want to say he convinced me, but he just gave me validation to my thoughts. Pulled the trigger, got it, and here we are.
Well, that's phenomenal. I mean, I think this is great to see too. This is definitely turning into an episode about how you can use your passion, even if the original passion isn't in real estate. You don't have to go be an agent to get into real estate at all. And so it sounds like you got your first, was that a long-term rental, your very first property?
It was.
And how did you come about doing that deal?
So one thing I got to lead with is say, hi, Myra, I love you. That's my wife. And together we have 5 kids, okay? So I started really young. Our first 3 is, we're a blended family. So my first 3, Julian 18, Jadelle 17, and John A's 14 from my first relationship. Then with Myra, we have our 6-year-old Mia, and then our 1-year-old. Yes, I have a 1-year-old. His name's Miles. It's all going to be full circle in a second. So we got our first rental wasn't even on purpose. So I went to First Colonial High School, and the neighborhood that I grew up in was not that far from the school. But knowing more about real estate at the time, I'm like, wow, this one has no HOA, great location. It's grandfathered into the old school rules. Let's try to find a place in here. Same townhouse neighborhood that I grew up in. We had an N-unit townhouse, biggest one in that little area. Yeah. The one next door became available, and we knew the lady. She was there 3 months out of the year. I think she had to stay with her mom or whatever, but I'm like, you're not using this but for a really expensive storage unit. So why can't we buy it from you? So long story short, we bought that house, but that was supposed to be our primary. And then, mind you, during that time, she was pregnant with our 6-year-old, Mia, at the time. So we moved in there, and then my other 3 kids moved with us as well. You can already think, there's just not enough space, dude. It's a packed house. It's a packed house. So we bought the house early part of that year, and after 3 months, we're like, no, we can't do this anymore. We need a bigger house. Yeah. So that year, we ended up buying 2 houses, not on purpose, but instead of selling it, we decided to rent it. And then after doing that, I'm like, why don't we just continue to do this, right? Yeah. So we just continue to grow our portfolio slowly but surely. The past 24 months, we've been growing way more aggressive, and now we have more of a plan for the next 36 months on what we're going to do. But it was, getting our first rental wasn't even on purpose. Yeah. It just ended up happening that way. Yeah, kind of happened. And we still have it to this day.
Well, that's all, yeah. So, I will say, the first one in the single family space, it's really I feel like they can happen like that, out of nowhere, because it's really not that crazy. My first one was a commercial property, and I had to go through the SBA, and so when I ended up getting that first single family home, I'm like, this is amazing. Because we were talking about the closing periods, businesses and stuff, but even with the SBA, I think it was 90 to 100 days is where that was. I'm like, that was exhausting. But so now you've got your first single family home, second single family home. Where did you transition into the short-term rentals?
So about 2 years ago, we met an individual, Austin, that was already in the short-term rental game, and I already had a bunch of other individuals that I knew in the game, but I never looked at numbers. I never took the time to do that. And luckily, Austin is an open book. He just hey, check these out. This is where I'm doing it. But the number one thing that scared me is it wasn't local. I can't touch this. I can't physically go there if something goes wrong. So that wasn't a scare. It was more of a worry. Well, what if, right? Because we what if the heck out of ourselves all the time. So we waited a year. I want to see what those numbers, because it's a very seasonal where we're at. Whether you're buying in Virginia Beach to do short-term rentals, which is extremely hard nowadays, you only got those 4 months, 5 months max that you're going to kill it. Same thing that we're doing. We're just doing it the opposite way because we're in a ski resort. So we have those 3 to 4 months of snow in skiing season. Same concept, but he killed it.
Yeah.
But the numbers made sense, right? Even if you didn't do it the way that he was doing it, the numbers made sense. And we went through so many different ways to try to like put an error into it. And the only way that it would, knock on wood, would fail is if we didn't try a little bit. You know what I mean? So because where it's at, you can't, there's no other competition. Yeah. You know, you can't get any other places where it's at. That one was huge. So because of that, we don't have any competing breweries, wineries, hotels, or anything within a 40 mile basis. You have to be here. So we went up there right before my youngest son, Miles, was born, literally 2 weeks before he was born. I'm like, if we don't go now, we're not going to do this. I'm sorry. We got to go. So we went up there for one night, checked into a place that where we bought them at, but we're never going to buy in that building. We learned that from that one night. And we wanted to buy a small one to start with. We ended up buying 2 because it just made sense. And we still have those 2 to this day. We just added to that specific portfolio again, like 2 months ago, because the season that we're looking at is really between now and like beginning end of March, depending on how the Mother Nature wants to be on our side or not on our side. And we're going to continue to add at least 1 or 2 of those per year. On top of me personally, my wife and I, we're going to continue to add at least 1 or 2 per year. But it's not necessarily a door. Like we talked about this before we were on camera. It's not about a property. It's about the doors. I want to try to get as many doors as we can. So even if we buy one property this year, probably gonna have 50 doors. Yeah. It doesn't matter, but we're going to continue to add 1 or 2 a year moving forward. That's the goal.
Yeah. So how did you find those initial properties on that ski resort? Were they on market, off market? Like when you went up there, I mean, did you know what properties you were looking at, or did you just go up there and there were some available? No,
we had a plan. We knew what we were going to do. So you're a realtor too. You can always refer somebody, right? So every place has realtors, real estate agents. Luckily, we had an inside track on it because one of our buddies was already doing it, right? So he recommended us to an individual there. However, we had to do our due diligence. The numbers needed to make sense. So they have their own MLS, just like every other city in the area in the country does. We just kept checking out their MLS. We also got in with the lender and the agent up there because they also do off-market deals as well. So all of ours were an on-market deal, but we have seen a bunch of off-market ones because now we're in it and we're paying attention to that area more than we did before. But even if we didn't have to go back and do this, and if anybody's looking at that, I don't care if it's where we're at, if it's in Utah, I don't care where it's at. Just go on Facebook, find some groups on there. People are more helpful than ever. They want to give you that information. You just got to do a little bit of the upfront legwork. Then after you do the legwork, find the properties and run numbers like you do anything. But I would recommend before buying, you have to go visit the area first. I mean, I know there's a ton of people that would buy sight unseen in any part of the country, and that's on them. But my personal advice, especially if you're ever going to visit there, just go check it out. Like, take a day. You know, just take a day, go out there, check out the area, check out the property, make your choice from there. Because now, after I did that, the one that we just bought, we did sight unseen. I just knew it would be fine. You know what I mean? So you just once you're comfortable with that in that area, you'll be fine moving forward. But I mean, we found it just by knowing the right people to at least introduce us to the concept, but then we just did our due diligence that we would do anywhere else.
Yeah. To speak on the Facebook thing, honestly, like there are so many groups out there. Like a couple months ago, I was looking at like wholesalings and off-market deals around here, and I mean the amount of groups that are available right now, all you have to go do is like say I'm looking for a wholesaler or I'm a cash buyer or something, and then they all come out of the woodwork. Like it's insane. Like everybody wants to make a deal, and so like if you just raise your hand in those groups, you'll get some traction. All right, and so now moving forward, what is the strategy? Are you going to stay in the short-term game, or like what are we going to do in the future?
So multifamilies are definitely here. Syndications are there. Shout out to Tillman. It's just there's so many verticals that you can go with. So it's kind of like I've been my entire life. I like to do a lot of it like this, but now, starting this year, my motto is divest to invest. So there's a few other business ventures that we're involved in that are all doing fine. It's just it's stretching my focus too much. So what we're doing is we're focusing more on adding the portfolio in a long-term and a short-term rental way, but there's really no percentage behind it because we have to see the deal first. You know, if 10 more STRs become available, then that's the route we're going to go because it makes sense, and vice versa. So it's not really a set strategy on what we're going to do. We're not staying in one lane and just rocking with it and pressing the gas forward, but it's really whatever comes with it. And that's honestly a blessing because we're in a position where you can do that. I'm not in a rush to buy it. I want to wait for a deal, and knock on wood, this one deal we're working on works the way it's going to be. Q1 I'll be where I want to be.
Nice.
Already.
Well, that's awesome. All right. So if somebody wanted to get into the short-term rental game, what advice would you give them to get their first one?
Take Austin Frangulis' short-term rental course.
Okay.
It's not live yet, but it will be soon. Shout out to Austin. If you're really interested into the MTR world, the midterm rental world, Mel Vollen, she's a beast. She knows this very well. And I name drop a lot because one thing I don't do is anything by myself. I have to have partners in everything. And even whether we're working together or not, there's people out there way smarter than me at this. I'm just a guy that believes in myself and knows the numbers, and I just do the work. But if you're trying to get in the STR game, there's so many websites and stuff that you can look at that is semi-overwhelming, to be honest with you, because there's just so much information out there. And I say set your strategy. Like, how much do you want to make a month? What is your goal? Because there's people like, yeah, you go buy a G-Wagon, all you need to do is get a arbitrage and Airbnb, make you $2,500 a month, and your car's paid for, and you can write it off full in a year. That's what they're saying. And I mean, that's all true, but is that your goal? Or do you want to make 10, 20, 30, 50 grand a month and have dope cash flow? Do you want to own the property or Airbnb arbitrage? I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it, but identifying what I want to do, and then what we're currently doing with my partner and I is, we want to own the property and then Airbnb it out. That's what we're doing. And currently our strategy is really only held in the market that we're currently in. We have none in Virginia Beach based on where the permitting is. It's really, really hard to get in there. Even if you're grandfathered in, it's still a lot. Ocean View, Norfolk area is a little easier. Still got to go through permitting, but it's a case-by-case basis because some cities are just banning it completely. As you know, I don't know if you saw or see that, but you got to get a lot more creative on what you're doing. That's why the MTR market is way more attractive now. You're not making nearly as much money as a short-term rental, but you're making more than a long-term. It's literally middle. You're right in the middle of what you're doing. But this area, we're one of the top 10 transient markets in the country, strictly based on military. I don't say there's a better chance for you to win here. It's not a layup or a slam dunk, but I mean, you're on a fast break. I'm pretty sure you can, as long as you practice a few, I'm pretty sure you'll be all right.
Nice. So MTR is midterm rental, and so could you speak on that a little bit? So, even if you had to transition from a short term to a midterm, like who are you looking for? What does that model look like? And what are the benefits of a midterm rental?
So if no one knows what a midterm rental is, again, shout out to Mel because she educated me a lot on this. It basically is your short-term rental, but you're renting it out to somebody for a minimum of 30 days. That's really the main difference on that. So when it comes to it, you're still going to make more money than you're having a long-term tenant in there. However, it's still fully furnished. You're still providing some amenities, regardless if it's Keurigs or whatever the case may be. But again, that's kind of it's a case-by-case basis because STR, where you want to kind of give them the world, long-term rentals,
bring your own.
It's an empty shell, and then midterms, you're kind of in the middle. However, from the traveling nurse perspective, from the military transient perspective, from the government contractor perspective, from the corporate people that need to have people come in here for a 3-month contract, they need a place to stay. I mean, you're going to make a good money doing an MTR, but you still have to keep it up like it's a STR in some way, shape, or form. The good news about this locally, at least here, is that anything that's 30 days or more, you don't necessarily need to go through the STR permitting process, which can be strenuous to say the least, and probably as long as you going with your SBA loan when you're buying your first building. It's a minute, but it's also too, it's a little easier because you have less wear and tear from different people coming in and out. Right. So the MTR market is the move, but again, there's people out there way smarter than I am, and you can find all this information out online. It's just find a house and do it.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
That sounds good, and obviously we are in a good spot because all the ones that you spoke about were in a military town. Obviously, one of the biggest in the. I think Norfolk is the biggest. Our area is, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty confident we have the biggest military presence in the country. I'm almost positive as well. And then obviously we have all the hospitals around here. We have EVMS to college, so like it's just breeding new medical people. So this is a good area for midterm rentals for that kind of demographic.
The good thing though is that you can still use your short-term rental sites. So you can use your Airbnbs, you can use your VRBOs, you can use your booking.coms, but being an MTR, you actually get to access like a Furnace Finder or I think it's Couchsurfer or Couch Hopper and a few of these other ones that specifically focus on MTRs. So it's almost like you're marrying both worlds. So let's say that you have the opportunity to be this is a strategy we're looking at to next year. Obviously, we're in off-season right now, right? Specifically here in Hampton Roads. So let's just say off-season is November through March, making this up. Are you going to MTR it through November through March and then STR it April through October? That's a possibility. Now you get the best of both worlds, but ultimately it's your choice. What do you want to do? Because the midterm rental game is nothing new. This has been out before we were born. You know what I'm saying? So it's just more popular now because there's just more platforms that really promote it instead of like Craigslist or the newspaper like our parents used to.
Yeah, right. That's still a thing, honestly. I still hear people find stuff on Craigslist. It's insane. All right, so I mean, you definitely sound like someone who goes and finds someone who's already done it and learn from them. But I mean, are there a lot of books, or is there a book that you would find pivotal in your investing journey?
So I'm more than happy to say I just turned 39. So I didn't really start my journey of doing any of this until I was 30 years old. I'd say late 20s, but let's just say 30. So I started that chapter of my life wanting to grow faster. And I just asked questions. But a book that actually two books that changed my entire thought process, and this probably sounds cliche, but it was The Secret and it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like those two made me start thinking.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. But I read them back to back, and it wasn't on purpose. They just happened to be in my room at the time. I don't even remember where the hell I got them from.
Yeah.
But I read them, I'm like, wow, that changed my entire perspective. But now reading like The 4-Hour Work Week, or reading The Millionaire Next Door, and all these other books that you see everywhere, it's going to spark something in your brain. It's going to spark a different thought process. And if it doesn't, read it again.
Yeah.
Because we have so much knowledge in these books that we don't even take advantage of anymore, because everything's on our phone or our watch or whatever. It's reading it and then writing it down. I mean, those books were pivotal in my thought process, but those are the two I would narrow it down to the most, not necessarily from an investing perspective. It just made me take no as the next opportunity instead of a debilitating, like, oh crap, I can't move forward. That's how I look at it. And then, you know, we've all failed, right? But now looking at it this way, first attempt in learning, that's all it stands for.
Exactly.
You don't need to fail every day. I'm just gonna learn. I'd rather people tell me no than me assume no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I kind of speak on that too, is like, as far as the reading, like I feel there are some pivotal books out there, but I feel just always constantly reading those things, writing it down, it kind of puts me in a state of that thought process to where you're continuously building in that direction as long as you are reading. So I feel it's kind of just, it's a gear you can shift into while you're listening to it, reading it, to build in that direction specifically. Okay, and so if anybody did want to get in contact with you, Julian, as far as investing or, you know, asking questions, DJing their weddings, you know, how could they get in contact with you?
You know, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at DJ Julian Rivera. Sounds so vain, but you can Google DJ Julian Rivera too. You can do that as well. But if it comes down to real estate and you want to buy and sell, now you're going to compete between me, this guy. You got to choose which one you want. You want gingerbread or you want cream? You go with that. It's on you.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll put those in the description. He does have a big following on Instagram. I did check that out. So that's awesome. But yeah, do reach out to him. Anything to do with that. And then if you want to reach out to me, raisingcapitalrealty.com, all the links are there, all the links to these videos. And if you need to be connected with somebody, you can't find a page, or you know that you heard something about Julian, but you need to find that, just reach out to me and I'll get you connected for sure. But until then, I do appreciate your time, Julian. This was awesome, man. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon.
Hey, keep killing it, bro.
Thanks, bro.